Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The room was massive. Its walls curved upward like the inside of a giant shell. Hundreds of aliens sat in floating seats that circled the speaking floor. Each species looked different from the next. Some had scales, others had fur. A few glowed with strange lights. Sarah had been coming to this place for 3 years now. She represented Earth and all its people. The Council controlled 847 species across thousands of star systems. They made the rules. They kept the peace. Or at least they tried to. Sarah had learned that the Council was not always fair. The strong species got what they wanted. The weak species got pushed around. Humans were considered weak. They were new to space. They had small ships and only a few colonies. The Council called them Category 3. That meant primitive. That meant they did not matter much. Today, the chamber felt different. Sarah could sense tension in the air. The usual chatter before meetings was quiet. Many aliens stared at her. Some looked away quickly when she met their eyes. Something was wrong. She checked her tablet again. The meeting agenda showed nothing unusual. Just routine trade discussions. But her instincts told her otherwise. A deep voice boomed across the chamber. It came from the central platform. A massive reptilian figure stood there. His scales were dark red, almost black. His eyes were yellow and cold. This was War Master Krell of the Zrikan Empire. The Zrikan were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They controlled the Council's military forces. They were known for being aggressive and proud. Krell raised one clawed hand. The room went completely silent. He turned his massive head toward Sarah. His teeth showed in what might have been a smile. It was not friendly. Sarah felt her heart beat faster but kept her face calm. She had trained for moments like this. She would not show fear. The Council demands your attention, Ambassador Chen. The Zrikan Empire has concerns about human colonial expansion. Your species has established 12 worlds in the outer sectors. These worlds are poorly defended. They pose security risks to the region. We cannot allow such weakness in our territory. Krell's words echoed in the vast space. Sarah felt a cold sensation run down her spine. This was not a security concern. This was a threat. What exactly are you proposing, War Master? Sarah asked. Her voice was steady. She had dealt with bullies before. Earth had sent her here because she did not back down easily. Krell made a rumbling sound. It might have been a laugh. I propose nothing, human. I demand. Your 12 colonies will be placed under Zrikan oversight. You will surrender control to us within 30 days. We will ensure proper security measures. We will defend these worlds. Of course, you will pay for this service. The chamber erupted. Some aliens chittered. Others made strange whistling sounds. A few clapped appendages together. Sarah realized they were laughing. They thought this was funny. The great human ambassador was being put in her place. She looked around the room. She searched for allies. She found none. Every species looked away or showed amusement. I must refuse, Sarah said clearly. Those colonies are sovereign human territory. We will not surrender them. The laughter grew louder. Krell's eyes narrowed. He took a step toward her. His massive form towered over her small human body. You refuse? You dare refuse the Zrikan Empire? He leaned down. His hot breath smelled like sulfur. Little human, do you know how many species have refused us? Do you know what happened to them? Sarah did not move back. She looked directly into his yellow eyes. I know your reputation, War Master. I also know the Council Charter. It protects the sovereignty of all member species. Krell straightened up. He laughed again. This time it sounded genuinely amused. The Charter. Yes, the precious Charter. Tell me, human, who do you think enforces the Charter? My warriors, my ships, my weapons. The Charter means nothing without power, and you have no power. He turned to address the full council. The human species has 30 days. They will surrender their colonies peacefully, or we will take them by force. We will call it pacification. It will be quick. There will be minimal casualties if they cooperate. He looked back at Sarah. We are being generous, Ambassador. We could simply take your worlds without asking. Be grateful we follow proper procedures. The council speaker, an ancient being that looked like a floating jellyfish, spoke in a tired voice. The council recognizes the Zrikan claim. Ambassador Chen, do you wish to present a counter-proposal? Sarah's mind raced. She needed time. She needed to contact Earth. She needed to warn the colonies. I request a recess to consult with my government. The speaker's tentacles waved slowly. Granted, this council will reconvene in 7 days. You have 30 days total to comply with Zraken demands. As the chamber emptied, several ambassadors approached Sarah. They spoke in hushed tones. A small blue alien with kind eyes touched her arm gently. I'm sorry, Ambassador Chen. The Zraken are too powerful. You should accept their terms. Save your people. Another ambassador, this one tall and thin like a mantis, clicked its mandibles. Resistance is foolish. The Zraken have crushed entire civilizations. What chance do humans have? They meant well. Sarah could see genuine concern in their eyes, but their words only made her more determined. Captain Marcus Reeves waited for her outside the chamber. He commanded the Odyssey, Earth's largest exploration vessel. It had brought Sarah to the council station. His face showed worry. He had watched the entire meeting from the gallery. I heard everything, ma'am. What are your orders? Sarah looked at him carefully. Marcus was military, though he wore a civilian uniform. That was the game Earth played. Their exploration ships were really warships in disguise. But the council did not know that. They thought humans were peaceful traders and scientists. Get us back to Earth, Captain. Maximum speed. We need to brief command. And Marcus? Yes, ma'am. Start the recall codes. Bring all our ships home. Every single one. He nodded slowly. He understood what that meant. His eyes showed something new. Not fear, not worry. Something colder. Something harder. Understood, Ambassador. I'll send the codes immediately. As they walked toward the docking bay, Sarah allowed herself one moment of doubt. Maybe she should surrender. Maybe the colonies were not worth a war. Then she remembered why humans had come to space in the first place. They had almost destroyed themselves on Earth. Nuclear wars, climate disasters, pandemics. They had survived by refusing to give up, by fighting for every inch of ground, by never surrendering to anyone or anything. The Zraken had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because their ships were small, because their weapons seemed primitive, because they smiled and traded peacefully. But War Master Krell did not understand humans at all. He did not know their history. He did not know what they were capable of when pushed into a corner. He was about to learn. The entire galaxy was about to learn. Humans had not come to space to be victims. They had come to space to survive, and humans were very, very good at surviving. The Odyssey jumped through hyperspace at maximum speed. Inside the ship, Captain Marcus Reeves sat in his quarters. He was watching old videos on his personal tablet. Images of Earth's past filled the screen. Cities burning during the Third World War. Soldiers fighting in trenches. Nuclear mushroom clouds rising over what used to be great nations. Fighter planes dogfighting in the sky. Tanks rolling across devastated landscapes. Marcus had grown up learning about these wars. Every human child did. They studied the mistakes. They learned the lessons. They swore never to repeat them. But they also learned something else. They learned that humans were survivors. That when pushed to the edge, they fought back with everything they had. That they never gave up, no matter how bad things looked. A message alert blinked on his screen. He closed the war videos and opened the encrypted file. It was from Admiral Victoria Okonkwo at Earth Defense Command. She was the head of all human military forces. Few aliens knew she even existed. The Council thought Earth had only a small defense force. They were wrong. Marcus read the message twice. Then he deleted it according to protocol. 4 days later, the Odyssey reached Earth. Marcus and Ambassador Chen took a shuttle down to Geneva, where the Unified Earth Command had its headquarters. The building looked like a simple government office from the outside. Inside, deep underground, it was something very different. It was a military fortress. The largest war room in human history sat beneath meters of reinforced concrete and steel. Admiral Okonkwo waited for them in a secure briefing room. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in 3 wars before humans went to space. She had seen combat on 4 continents. She knew what war really meant. Behind her stood dozens of other officers. Each one represented a different branch of Earth's hidden military. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, Cyber Command, Intelligence. Ambassador Chen delivered her report. She described the council meeting. She repeated every word War Master Krell had said. She showed recordings of the other species laughing. When she finished, the room was silent. Finally, Admiral Okonkwo spoke. Her voice was calm but cold as ice. So they think we are weak. They think they can take what is ours because we smile and trade peacefully. They have forgotten something important. Being kind is not the same as being weak. She turned to face a massive screen on the wall. With a gesture, star maps appeared. They showed human territory, the 12 colonies that Krell wanted, but they also showed something else. Something the galaxy did not know about. Hidden bases throughout the solar system, shipyards on the dark side of Earth's moon, military installations inside asteroids, weapons platforms disguised as research stations, defense networks that spanned from Mercury to beyond Neptune. For 50 years we have prepared for this moment. We joined the galactic community with open hands, but we kept a closed fist behind our back. We learned from history. We learned that peace must be defended, that the strong respect only strength. Admiral Okonkwo looked around the room at her officers. Today I am activating Protocol Omega. All hidden military assets will come online. All reserve forces will be mobilized. All civilian ships will return to Earth immediately. A younger officer raised his hand. Admiral, what about the colonies? Should we evacuate them? Okonkwo nodded slowly. Yes, begin evacuation immediately, but do it quietly. Make it look like routine personnel rotations. We do not want to alarm the Zrikan yet. We want them confident. We want them to think they have already won. The officer saluted and hurried out of the room to carry out his orders. Another officer spoke up. This one was older, with scars on his face from combat long ago. Ma'am, are we really going to fight them? The Zrikan Empire has thousands of ships. They have conquered dozens of species. Our intelligence says they have never lost a war. Admiral Okonkwo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. That is because they have never fought humans before. They have never fought a species that evolved by hunting other hunters. They have never faced an enemy that refuses to surrender no matter what. She brought up more images on the screen. These showed Zrikan military tactics. Their ships were powerful but predictable. They fought in straight lines. They followed ancient honor codes. They believed in face-to-face combat. They thought war was glorious. Humans had no such illusions. Humans knew war was ugly, brutal, and total. They would use any tactic, any weapon, any strategy. The only rule was to win and protect their own. Captain Reeves spoke for the first time. Admiral, the Odyssey stands ready. Her crew knows what is coming. They are all volunteers. Every man and woman aboard chose this assignment knowing the risks. Okonkwo nodded with respect. Good. The Odyssey will be part of our first response team. But Captain, I need you to understand something. This is not exploration anymore. This is war, real war. Some of you will not come home. The room fell silent again. Every person there knew what war meant. They had studied history. They had trained for combat. But training was different from reality. Still, not one officer looked away. Not one showed doubt. They were ready. They had always known this day might come. Humans hoped for peace but prepared for war. That was the human way. That was how they had survived everything their brutal history had thrown at them. Over the next 3 weeks, hidden shipyards throughout the solar system came to life. Massive construction platforms that had appeared to be abandoned suddenly blazed with activity. Hundreds of warships that had been disguised as cargo vessels shed their fake hulls. Fighter craft poured out of underground hangars on Mars. Submarines in Earth's oceans surfaced and launched into space. They had been building these forces for decades, just in case. The evacuations began immediately. On all 12 colonies, transport ships arrived to take civilians away. The colonists were told it was for their safety during tense negotiations. Most believed the official story, but some noticed that the friendly exploration crews were different now. More serious, more military. These colonists whispered among themselves but followed orders. They trusted Earth to protect them. Meanwhile, Ambassador Chen returned to the council station. She attended the scheduled meeting 7 days after the ultimatum. War Master Krell looked smug and confident. He clearly expected her to surrender. Instead, she calmly requested a full 30 days to discuss terms with her government. Krell laughed but agreed. He was in no hurry. He believed humans were terrified. He thought they were buying time to accept defeat gracefully, if only he knew what was happening in human space. If only he could see the fleets forming up. If only he understood that humans were not buying time to surrender. They were buying time to prepare, time to move their civilians to safety, time to position their forces, time to turn their colonies into traps. War Master Krell had given them a gift. He had given them 30 days to get ready for war. On day 28, Admiral Okonkwo held a final briefing. Every ship captain attended by video link. Every ground commander joined from their positions. Every intelligence officer provided updates. The evacuation was 98% complete. The fleets were positioned. The weapons were armed. The cyber warfare teams were ready to attack Zrikan communications. The special forces units were in place. Everything was ready. The Admiral looked at the faces on her screens. These were humanity's defenders. Young and old. Men and women from every nation on Earth and every colony in space. Different backgrounds. Different beliefs. Different languages. But all united by one simple fact. They were human. And humans protected their own. She cleared her throat and began to speak. Her words were simple but powerful. They echoed through every ship, every base, every command center. In 2 days, the Zrekan will come. They think they will find frightened colonists in empty planets. Instead, they will find us. They will learn that humans are not prey. We are predators. We are survivors. We have endured ice ages and plagues. We have survived wars that nearly destroyed our entire species. We have climbed from caves to stars, and we will not be pushed back down. We will not surrender. We will not run. We will fight, and we will win. Across human space, soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots ran final system tests. Engineers verified shield generators. Doctors prepared medical bays. Everyone did their jobs with quiet efficiency. They were afraid. Of course they were afraid. Only fools felt no fear before battle. But they were also determined. They were also ready, because they were human. And being human meant standing up to bullies. It meant protecting the weak. It meant never giving up. It meant fighting for every inch of ground, even if that ground was light years from Earth. Day 30 arrived like thunder. War Master Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Pride. It was the largest warship in the Zrekan fleet. Its weapons could destroy a city in seconds. Its shields could withstand attacks from a dozen enemy ships. Behind it followed 3,000 more vessels, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, fighters. This was the largest Zrekan fleet assembled in 20 years. The fleet emerged from hyperspace near Proxima Colony. This was the closest human settlement to Zrekan space. Krell had chosen it for his demonstration. He would crush this colony quickly. Then the humans would see his power. They would surrender the other 11 worlds without a fight. It would be efficient, clean, proper, as all Zrekan conquests should be. He had done this many times before with other weak species. The sensors showed Proxima Colony ahead. Krell expected to see civilian ships fleeing in panic. Instead, the scanners showed something strange. There were ships, yes, but they were not running. They were holding position in a defensive formation. The War Master leaned forward in his command chair. These were supposed to be cargo vessels and research ships. Why were they arranged like a military fleet? One of his officers called out from a sensor station. War Master, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. Their power outputs are much higher than expected. They appear to have military-grade shields. Krell made a dismissive gesture with his clawed hand. Civilian ships with extra shields. They are trying to look dangerous. It will not help them. All ships prepare to fire. Target their command vessel first. Before his weapons officer could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. The human vessels were powering up weapons. Lots of weapons. Energy readings spiked across the board. Krell stood from his chair in surprise. Those are military ships, but how? Where did humans get military technology? Another alarm sounded. Missiles were incoming. Hundreds of them. Approaching from multiple vectors. Point defense batteries came online automatically. They began shooting down the missiles. Then the human ships opened fire with energy weapons. Beams of concentrated power lanced through space. They were not as powerful as Zrekan weapons, but they were fast and accurate. Several Zrekan destroyers took hits. Their shields flared but held. Krell bared his teeth in anger. So the humans want to fight. Very well. We will teach them what real power means. All ships return fire. Destroy them all. The Zrekan fleet opened fire. Their massive weapons lit up space with destructive energy. 3 human ships died in the first volley. Their shields failed and their hulls exploded into debris. But instead of breaking formation, the remaining human ships did something unexpected. They scattered. They broke into small groups and began moving erratically. This was not proper fleet tactics. This was chaos. This was dishonorable. Krell quickly realized the problem. His ships were designed to fight in formation. They supported each other with overlapping fields of fire. But the humans were not fighting in formation. They were darting around like insects. They would appear, fire a burst of weapons, then accelerate away before the Zrekin could target them properly. It was frustrating. It was cowardly. It was also effective. His heavier ships could not turn fast enough to track the smaller human vessels. Then something worse happened. A human ship suddenly accelerated directly toward one of his cruisers. It was moving at ramming speed. The cruiser tried to shoot it down, but the human vessel was too fast and too close. At the last second, the human ship exploded, but it was not weapon fire that destroyed it. The ship had detonated its own reactor. The explosion tore through the cruiser's shields like paper. The cruiser broke in half and died. What kind of warriors would deliberately destroy their own ship? Krell could not understand it. This was madness. This was waste. 3 more human ships made suicide runs. 3 more Zrekin vessels died. The War Master roared commands. His officers scrambled to respond. They changed their formation to create more space between ships. They assigned point defense ships to watch for suicide attacks. But the humans kept adapting. They kept finding new ways to hurt his fleet. Then the mines came. Thousands of small spheres that had been drifting in space like debris suddenly activated. They were nuclear mines. Each one contained enough explosive power to destroy a small ship. They had been placed here weeks ago waiting. The Zrekin fleet had jumped right into a minefield without knowing it. Explosions rippled through his formations. Smaller ships died instantly. Larger ships took damage to their hulls and systems. Krell's communications officer reported that several ships were having computer problems. Their navigation systems were acting strange. Their weapons targeting was glitching. The War Master realized with cold shock what was happening. Cyber warfare. The humans had infected his ships with computer viruses. His fleet was being attacked not just with weapons but with software, with invisible enemies that crept through his networks. This was not how honorable warriors fought, but the humans clearly did not care about honor. They cared about winning. They used every dirty trick they could think of. They hacked communications to spread false orders. They spoofed sensor readings to create phantom targets. They broadcast horrible sounds and images meant to disturb Zrekin crews. Psychological warfare. Humans were trying to break the morale of warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. The audacity was almost impressive. The battle raged for 6 hours. In the end, the Zrekin fleet won. They had superior numbers and firepower. Every human ship was destroyed. But the cost was terrible. Over 400 Zrekin vessels were gone. Thousands of warriors were dead. Many more ships were damaged and limping. The colony installations on the planet below were destroyed by orbital bombardment, but they had been mostly empty anyway. The humans had evacuated them. This was a trap. The whole thing had been a trap. War Master Krell stood in his damaged bridge and stared at the casualty reports. He had expected to lose perhaps 50 ships at most. Instead, he had lost nearly 15% of his fleet. To a species that was supposed to be primitive. To warriors who were supposed to be weak. He thought back to Ambassador Chen standing before the council. She had not seemed frightened at all. He had thought it was foolish pride. Now he understood. It had been confidence. His communications officer approached carefully. War Master, we have received a transmission from the humans. Krell gestured for him to play it. A holographic image appeared. It showed a human pilot sitting in a damaged ship moments before it was destroyed. The pilot was young, barely more than a child by Zrekin standards, but he was smiling. The smile was not kind. It was predatory, like a hunting animal that had just tasted blood. The young human spoke directly to the camera. His voice was calm despite the alarms blaring behind him. You think we are fighters? You think this was our military showing you what we can do? The pilot laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Wait until you meet our real soldiers. Wait until you see what humans do when we stop being nice. This was just a warning. This was us being gentle. He saluted mockingly. The transmission ended just as his ship exploded. The words haunted Krell. If that was humans being gentle, what would they be like when truly angry? He quickly pushed the thought aside. He was a Zrekin War Master. He did not fear anyone. His fleet had won the battle. The colony was destroyed. He had followed his orders. He sent a message to the Zrikan High Command declaring victory. Then he sent a message to the other human colonies. Surrender now or face the same fate as Proxima. But privately in his quarters that night, Krell watched the recordings of the battle again. He studied the human tactics, the suicide runs, the mines, the cyber attacks, the psychological warfare. These were not the actions of a primitive species. These were the tactics of experienced, ruthless warriors. Warriors who understood that the only thing that mattered in war was victory. Warriors who would do anything to win. Warriors who treated war not as glory but as survival. Across the galaxy, other species watched the footage that leaked from the battle. They had expected the humans to lose quickly. Instead, they had fought like demons. They had hurt the mighty Zrikan Empire badly. Ambassadors whispered in council chambers. Military analysts revised their assessments of human capabilities. And in the offices of various intelligence agencies, files marked Category 3 primitive were quietly changed. Some species began to wonder, what had they unleashed by laughing at the humans? What kind of warriors had they underestimated? Earth did not wait for the Zrekan to attack again. 2 days after the battle at Proxima, human fleets struck deep into enemy territory. War Master Krell was still repairing his damaged ships when the first reports arrived. Human vessels had destroyed a supply depot in the Kralik system. They had used the same hit-and-run tactics as before. They appeared from hyperspace, fired everything they had, then jumped away before defenders could respond. The Zrikan High Command was furious. Krell received orders to hunt down and destroy these raiders, but finding them was nearly impossible. Human ships were smaller and faster than Zrikan vessels. They did not travel in large fleets that could be tracked easily. Instead, they operated in small groups. Strike teams, each one independent, each one dangerous. They were like a swarm of angry wasps. You could not swat them all. Captain Marcus Reeves commanded one of these strike teams. The Odyssey led 5 other ships through Zrikan space. They were hunting for targets of opportunity. Military installations, supply convoys, communication relays, anything that would hurt the enemy. Marcus studied the tactical display in his command center. His crew worked around him in focused silence. They had been at war for 2 weeks now. They had destroyed 6 Zrikan targets and had not lost a single ship yet. His tactical officer called out, "Captain, sensors are picking up a large installation ahead."
Looks like a shipyard.
Marcus leaned forward. "How many defenders?" The officer checked her screens. 2 cruisers and about 20 fighters. Marcus smiled. Those were good odds. He knew his ships were faster and his weapons just as deadly. "All right, people, you know the drill. In fast, hit hard, get out. Let's send the Zrakan a message." The attack lasted 12 minutes. Human ships dropped out of hyperspace already firing. Missiles streaked toward the shipyard platforms. Energy weapons carved through docking structures. The 2 Zrikan cruisers tried to respond but were overwhelmed by coordinated fire from multiple directions. Marcus watched as 3 enemy fighters exploded. His gunners were getting better with practice. War was a terrible teacher, but an effective one. Then the shipyard itself began to break apart. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure. "Time to go. All ships jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." The human vessels vanished into hyperspace just as reinforcements arrived. Marcus knew they were leaving chaos behind. The shipyard had been building new warships for the Zrikan fleet. Now it was scrap metal. Every ship they could not build was one less threat to human colonies. This was war of attrition. Death by 1,000 cuts. Humans were good at this kind of fighting. They had learned it during centuries of guerrilla warfare on Earth. While ships like the Odyssey struck at infrastructure, other human forces targeted something more important: morale. Special forces teams infiltrated Zrikan colony worlds. Not to hurt civilians, but to spread fear. They would sabotage power plants, hack into communication networks, leave messages that could not be traced. The messages were always the same. "We are here. We are watching. We can strike anywhere. Your military cannot protect you." The effect was devastating. On the Zrikan homeworld, citizens who had never feared anything before now looked over their shoulders. They installed extra locks on their homes. They questioned their government's assurances of safety. Their military was supposed to be unbeatable, yet humans were striking them at will. The Zrikan economy began to suffer. Resources that should have gone to civilian needs were diverted to military defense. Factories that made consumer goods were converted to weapons production. The entire society was being transformed by war. War Master Krell tried to strike back. He ordered attacks on human supply lines, but he found very few to attack. Humans did not rely on long supply chains like the Zrikan did. Each human fleet carried everything it needed. Each ship could operate independently for months. This was another lesson from Earth's history. During ancient naval warfare, the side with better logistics usually won. Humans had studied those lessons well. They designed their forces to survive without constant resupply. Frustrated, Krell made a terrible decision. If he could not hurt human military forces, he would hurt human civilians. He ordered the destruction of New Haven, a human agricultural colony. It had little military value but was home to 80,000 farmers and their families. The Zrikan fleet arrived without warning. They bombarded the planet from orbit. Fields burned. Towns were destroyed. By the time human reinforcements arrived, 30,000 civilians were dead. The images from New Haven spread across human space within hours. Burned homes, dead children, crater-filled fields, survivors weeping over bodies. Admiral Okonkwo called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. Her face on the video screens was like carved stone, cold, hard, angry. She spoke in a voice that promised terrible things. The Zrikan have made a mistake. They have shown us who they truly are. Now we will show them who we truly are. From this moment we stop holding back. The phrase "Remember New Haven" became a battle cry. Human forces painted it on their ships. They whispered it before missions. They shouted it during attacks. The gloves came off. Human tactics became more aggressive, more ruthless, more brutal. They stopped trying to minimize Zrikan casualties. They stopped following the old rules of war. If the Zrikan wanted to kill civilians, then humans would make every Zrikan military asset a target. No mercy, no quarter. Total war. Captain Reeves led a mission to destroy a Zrikan military academy. It was training the next generation of Zrikan officers. Before New Haven, humans would not have attacked it. They would have said it was too much like a civilian target. After New Haven, they no longer cared. The Odyssey and her sister ships arrived during graduation ceremonies. The human weapons did not miss. The academy became a tomb for 5,000 young Zrikan warriors who never got the chance to fight. The psychological impact was immense. Zrikan families who had sent their children to become honored warriors received only death notifications. Krell tried to keep the details secret, but information leaked anyway. Humans made sure it leaked. They broadcast the truth across Zrikan communication networks. Your leaders started this war. Your leaders killed our farmers. Now your children are paying the price. Is conquest worth this cost? The seeds of doubt began to grow in Zrikan hearts. Meanwhile, humans broadcast their own history to the Zrikan. They showed footage of their world wars, images of millions dying, cities reduced to rubble, entire nations destroyed. And then they showed how humans rebuilt, how they survived, how they kept fighting no matter how terrible things became. The message was clear. Humans had already survived the worst. They had already faced extinction multiple times. This war was nothing compared to what they had endured before. A particular piece of human history fascinated and terrified the Zrikan. It was about persistence hunting. Ancient humans would chase prey animals for days without stopping. The animal would run. The human would follow. The animal would rest. The human would keep coming. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. Then the human would make the kill. This was how humanity evolved. As endurance predators. As hunters who never gave up. Never stopped. Never quit. The Zrikan began to understand what they faced. Humans were not like other species. Most species in the galaxy evolved as prey animals. They ran from danger. They hid from threats. But humans evolved as hunters. They chased danger. They confronted threats. And most terrifying of all, they bonded together in ways that seemed impossible. A human soldier would die to save his comrades without hesitation. This pack-bonding behavior made human military units incredibly effective. They fought not just for survival, but for each other. 6 months into the war, the situation had changed completely. The Zrikan Empire had lost nearly a third of its military fleet. Their economy was in crisis. Their citizens were afraid. Their high command was divided about whether to continue the war. Meanwhile, humans were growing stronger. More ships rolled out of their hidden shipyards every week. More volunteers signed up to fight. The entire human species was united in a way that shocked alien observers. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Some species suggested intervening to stop the war. Others argued it was too late for that. A few quietly began supporting the humans with intelligence information and supplies. They remembered their own encounters with the Zrikan. They had not forgotten being bullied and threatened. Now they were watching someone finally stand up to the bullies, someone who refused to back down, someone who fought with such ferocity that even the mighty Zrikan were losing. War Master Krell sat in his command center and reviewed casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. Over 10,000 ships lost, hundreds of thousands of warriors dead, dozens of installations destroyed, and the humans showed no signs of stopping. They kept coming, like those persistence hunters from their ancient past, relentless, unstoppable. He finally understood Ambassador Chen's calm confidence that day in the council. She had known this would happen. She had known that pushing humans into war would be a terrible mistake. He had learned too late that some species should not be messed with. The war reached its final stage when human fleets surrounded the Zrekan homeworld. It had taken 14 months of constant fighting, 14 months of sacrifice and loss, but humans had done what everyone thought impossible. They had brought the mighty Zrikan Empire to its knees. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant, and watched the planet below. 3 billion Zrikan civilians lived on that world. Their fate now rested in human hands. War Master Krell's remaining forces formed a defensive ring around the planet. He had maybe 200 ships left from his once great fleet. They were damaged and low on supplies. His warriors were exhausted and demoralized. But they would still fight. Zrikan honor demanded it. Krell opened a communication channel to the human fleet. His image appeared on the Defiant's main screen. He looked older now, tired, but his eyes still held pride. Admiral Okonkwo, I am prepared to discuss terms of surrender. His words were careful, formal. Krell was a warrior who knew when he was beaten, but he still had his dignity. The Admiral nodded slowly. She respected that. She had fought against the Zrekan for over a year. She had learned they were brave, even if they were also aggressive. War Master Krell, these are our terms. Complete demilitarization of your empire. Reparations for the damage you caused. War crimes trials for those responsible for New Haven. And guarantees that you will never threaten human colonies again. Krell's face showed pain at those words. Complete demilitarization would mean the end of Zrikan military power. They would become weak in a galaxy full of dangers. But he had no choice. He had led his people into this war. He had to lead them out of it even if it meant humiliation. I accept your terms on behalf of the Zrikan High Command. However, I request one thing. Allow my warriors to return home with honor. Allow them to keep their personal weapons and ceremonial armor. Let them know they fought bravely, even though they lost. Admiral Okonkwo considered this request. Her advisors whispered that she should refuse, that she should make the surrender as harsh as possible. But she remembered something her grandmother had told her long ago. Make peace with tomorrow in mind, not yesterday. She wanted to end this war in a way that would prevent the next one. Agreed, War Master. Your warriors may keep their honor, but their weapons must be deactivated and registered. And they must never again be used against humans or any other species without just cause. The formal surrender took place 2 days later. The Galactic Council witnessed it. Krell presented his ceremonial blade to Admiral Okonkwo as a symbol of defeat. It was an ancient Zrikan tradition. She accepted it with respect, then did something unexpected. She handed him a human flag. This represents Earth and all human colonies. Display it in your Hall of Warriors. Let future generations of Zrikan remember what happened when they underestimated us. Not as shame, but as wisdom. Some species should be friends, not enemies. But one Zrikan refused to accept defeat. General Thrakis commanded a hidden battle group far from the homeworld. When he learned of the surrender, he was furious. He believed Krell had betrayed their honor. He made a desperate decision. He would strike at Earth itself. One final blow that would restore Zrikan pride. His forces numbered only 60 ships, but they were enough to hurt the human homeworld, or so he thought. He jumped his fleet into the solar system without warning. What General Thrakis found there shocked him. Earth was surrounded by defense platforms, thousands of them. Hidden bases throughout the solar system came online. Fighter wings launched from the Moon, Mars, Jupiter's moons, and even the asteroid belt. The human home system was a fortress. This was where humanity had built its greatest defenses. This was the line that could never be crossed. Thrakus realized his mistake immediately. He tried to retreat. It was too late. Captain Marcus Reeves was on leave visiting his family on Earth when the attack came. He ran to the nearest military base and took command of a defense squadron. The Odyssey was in orbit for repairs, but other ships were ready. Marcus led them against the Zrikan attackers with cold fury. These were the last Zrikan warriors who had not learned their lesson. He would teach them now. The battle was short and brutal. Only 5 Zrekan ships escaped. The rest were destroyed. Captain Reeves pursued the fleeing ships. His fighters caught them near Saturn. In the final moments, Thrakus sent a message. It was an apology. Not to humans, but to War Master Krell. He realized he had been wrong. That continuing the fight would only bring more death. Marcus gave the order to fire anyway. These Zrikan had attacked Earth. They had threatened billions of civilians. There would be no mercy for them. The last ship exploded in a ball of fire. Captain Reeves closed his eyes. So many dead, on both sides. All because of pride and fear. The attack on Earth changed everything. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Chen presented evidence of Zrikan war crimes. She showed recordings of New Haven. She showed data on all the military installations they had destroyed. She showed casualty figures. Then she showed something else. Evidence that several council species had encouraged the Zrikan to attack humans. Secret communications. Promises of support. Trade deals contingent on human defeat. The council chamber erupted in chaos. The vote that followed was historic. The council formally sanctioned the Zrikan Empire. They stripped away Zrikan voting privileges. They imposed economic restrictions. But more importantly, they passed new laws. Laws that protected smaller species from aggression by larger ones. Laws that made military threats against sovereign colonies illegal. Laws that created an independent peacekeeping force not controlled by any single empire. The council had learned that bullies must be stopped early, before they grow too powerful. The war officially ended 1 year and 2 months after it began. The final casualty count was staggering. Over 50,000 human military personnel dead. 300,000 Zrekan warriors killed. Billions of credits in destroyed property. Entire planets scarred by orbital bombardment. But humans had won. They had protected their colonies. They had earned respect. Most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that they would not be pushed around. Not now. Not ever. Captain Marcus Reeves received a medal for his actions during the war. He stood in a ceremony hall on Earth surrounded by other heroes. Soldiers who had fought on distant worlds. Pilots who had flown impossible missions. Engineers who had kept ships running under fire. Medics who had saved countless lives. They were all young when the war started. They looked older now. War did that to people. It took away innocence and replaced it with hard experience. During his speech, Marcus mentioned his crew. Many had not survived. The Odyssey had been hit 17 times during the war. Each time she had been repaired and sent back into combat. But you could not repair people as easily as ships. Marcus thought about Lieutenant James Park, the pilot who had been captured early in the war. The one who told the Zrikan to wait until they met real soldiers. James had died in the defense of New Haven. He was one of 30,000. His name was now carved on a memorial wall along with all the others. The 12 colonies were rebuilt over the next 5 years. They were stronger now, better defended. Humans poured resources into them. They were no longer just farming worlds or mining outposts. They were fortresses. Each one had military installations, defense platforms, fighter bases. Humans would never again be caught unprepared. The galaxy had taught them a lesson. They had learned it well. Peace was wonderful, but only strength could guarantee peace. War Master Krell retired from military service. He spent his remaining years writing about the war. His book became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. It was called Lessons from Defeat. In it, he explained all the mistakes the Zrikan made. The biggest mistake was underestimating their enemy. Humans had appeared weak because they chose to appear weak. They had been kind because they chose to be kind. But when threatened, they became something else entirely. They became predators. The Zrikan and humans eventually became cautious friends. It took time. Many Zrikan still felt resentment about their defeat. Many humans still felt anger about New Haven. But both species learned to work together. They discovered they had things in common. Both valued honor in their own ways. Both respected strength. Both understood sacrifice. Trading partnerships formed. Cultural exchanges happened. Slowly, former enemies became allies. Other species in the galaxy watched this transformation with interest. Some began approaching humanity differently, not with condescension but with respect. Humans were no longer Category 3. They were now classified as Category 1, the highest tier. Their military capabilities were studied. Their tactics were copied. Their history was researched. Young aliens at military schools learned about human persistence hunting, about human pack bonding, about human refusal to surrender. Humans became both admired and feared. 10 years after the war ended, a new species made first contact with the Galactic Council. They were young and eager, much like humans had been 50 years earlier. During their orientation, they asked about the various major species. When they asked about humans, an old ambassador from a peaceful herbivore species answered. The ambassador had been there when War Master Krell threatened Ambassador Chen. He remembered everything. He chose his words carefully.